Hi there, Smart Driver, talking to you about traffic signs. This is the component of the Smarter Defensive Driving System under the subcategory of observation. You need to read traffic signs and glean the information from them to be a safer, smarter driver and reduce your chances of being involved in a crash. A couple of people are here. Marion is here. Sean is here. Marion is tuning in from good afternoon. No weather about what's going on in Vancouver. Elevator Fan is tuning in from Monticello, Indiana, and Sean is here from Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. Hello. I just got back this morning from Nelson, which is in the deep interior of British Columbia, and drove across two-lane highways, up and down, twisty-turny, and road signs, traffic signs. What we're talking about today became absolutely critical in terms of driving safely on those roadways through the mountains, two-lane, concrete barriers, knowing what hazard obstruction signs are, knowing slowing down to the cautionary speed that's suggested for going around the curves, and maintaining your space from other traffic on the highway, because you do not want to get into trouble by rear-ending other traffic and bunching up. And ideally, to be safe on highways, you want to drive in the spaces between the clusters. You want to have that 3 to 4 second following distance. The reason we use 3 to 4 second following distance is speed is relative. So therefore, if you're in the city, it's a certain amount of length, for example, 10 car lengths, and then when you get out on the highway, that doubles 20 car lengths. So it opens up. This is why we use time to measure following distance. And the way that you do that is the car in front passes a fixed object. You start counting. 1 rhinosaur, 2 rhinosaur, 3 rhinosaur. And if you go past the same fixed object before you get to 3 seconds of following distance, you're too close and you need to increase your following distance. Now, people are going to say to me all the time, if I leave space in front of me, then people are going to cut in. Yes, every now and again they're going to, but for the most part, you are setting an example to other drivers on the roadway. And I have found in the past few months of paying attention to this and observing this to teach you better that other drivers behind you, if they see a big space in front of you, that ideal 3 to 4 second following distance under good traffic conditions, they too will increase their following distance, not sit up on your bumper and tailgate you. So set an example for other people. Now, obviously, this is going to change a little bit if you're in congestion in the city and whatnot. Of course, the distance is going to shrink up, but pay attention to that following distance, okay? That is critical. You need that following distance to work and glean information on the roadways and take note of the traffic signs, because in cities, traffic signs are much more difficult to read and see because they're just lost in the melee. There's your big word for the day, the melee, the just absolute overwhelming inundation of traffic signs and other signs, billboards and whatnot within the cities. But when you get out on the highways, it's obviously a lot easier to look and take in, glean the information from traffic signs and keep yourself safe. The other piece about traffic signs is in inclement weather, when it gets foggy, rainy, or light conditions deteriorate at night, you can use them as landmarks to determine where the roadway is going, especially if you're on a dark 2-lane mountain road, rock, tree, concrete barrier. You need to be looking for those traffic signs to be able to locate the roadway and keep yourself safe when you're driving. Marion says that it's cloudy in Vancouver. Evan, emergency vehicles and safety personnel overrule signs and traffic lights for safety, even if they have to obey the said signs and lights in general. Yes, if lights and sirens are on emergency vehicles, you are to give them the right of way so that they can proceed and get to the emergency as quickly as possible. Absolutely correct. Let pedestrians finish crossing Let pedestrians finish crossing before you proceed in case they return. Yes. And what Evan is talking about there in terms of pedestrians crossing. So when pedestrians are coming towards you, you need a minimum of 1.5 lanes of traffic between your vehicle and their vehicle. And when they're going away from you, you need a minimum of 0.5 lane of space to keep pedestrians safe. And we were talking about this last week in terms of defensive driving, a couple of weeks ago with Tim, who's a retired RCMP officer here. 1.5 meters, a yard and a half, 4 feet of space between your vehicle and the vulnerable road user when you're at city speeds. When you're out on the highways, you want even more space. And if it's not possible to give more space to pedestrians and other vulnerable road users, then simply stop, wait for the traffic situation to change, give them that space, and then proceed. Because vulnerable road users in high-income countries, Europe, North America, Australia, other places in the world, make up 1/4 of traffic deaths. And I am convinced, absolutely convinced, that this number is going to increase in the next 5 years, that it is probably going to approach 40% of traffic deaths. We were in Nelson for the last 2 days, because yesterday was a professional development day. The kids were off school. Obviously, they've been off school for 4 days. Here in Canada, it's Truth and Reconciliation Day. It's a public holiday. So we went to Nelson for a couple of days with our French exchange student. Nelson, as you may or may not know, is a city built on a mountain. So if you go away from the lake, you are going uphill. And it is a good hill. It's probably 3 miles of straight down to the lake. And that city has seen an increase, a tremendous increase, I would argue, in electric bicycles. Because the electric bicycles allow people to flatten out the hill. This was the barrier for many people riding a bicycle. And now that we have electric bicycles, these people, I just see them going up the hill and they're like, do, 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 because as long as you're pedaling, the electric motor is active when you're riding the bicycle. So there were many, many, many electric bicycles in and around Nelson that's built on the side of a mountain, because people want to ride their bicycles and it's fun to do so, and it's a inexpensive alternative form of transportation. So I am going to predict that in the next 5 years, in industrial countries, first high-income countries, I think is now the PC term for that, that we are going to see a tremendous increase in the number of traffic deaths of vulnerable road users. Marion, I have a question. You have often said that you tap on the brakes to let people behind you know you are stopped, but how do you do that in an automatic? So yeah, just take your foot. So you've got your stopping distance in traffic, Marion. You're back 1 vehicle length. You don't even have to really release the brake. You just bring it up, take your foot off it for just off and on again, and reapply the brake. The other thing, I was talking a couple of weeks ago about this, Marion, is the defensive driving strategy that I use when I come to a stop to prevent getting rear-ended is about half the distance that I need to bring the vehicle to a stop. I will brake, release the brake, which will release the brake lights on the back of the vehicle, and then I will reapply the brakes, which will flash the brake lights on the back of the vehicle. And oftentimes, if the person behind you is not really paying attention, that on and off of the brake lights is enough to get their attention, so that they're like, whoa, wait a minute, something just flashed. What am I needing to pay attention to? And again, we come back to communication. This is the subcategory of the smarter defensive driving in terms of communication. It's the same thing as signaling. And what I say to people, minimum 3 flashes of the signal before you change directions of the vehicle. 1 flash to get the other person's, usually a driver's, attention. 2 flashes for them to locate you, and the 3rd flash for them to take some sort of evasive action or to help you out. In many cases, the 3rd flash, people have said, oh, people will intentionally block you if you signal, so therefore when I change lanes, I don't signal, which is irresponsible, to say the least. Usually what's happening is people are not intentionally blocking you. They're intentionally trying to speed up to get out of your way, to make room, is what they're doing. So going back to the question that Marion was asking about defensive posturing to prevent being rear-ended, you come up, you brake about half the distance that you need to brake to get the vehicle stopped where you want it to stop, and then halfway there, release the brake and then reapply the brake. And then just before you come to a stop, what happens is the vehicle is 2 pieces. It's the body and then it's the chassis, which is the wheels, the tire, and the drivetrain, right? And as you brake, the suspension, the body moves forward of the chassis. And veteran drivers will just do this naturally without thinking about it, but new drivers will not. So as you come up and the vehicle just about comes to a complete stop, you want to release the brakes. And what happens is when you release the brakes, the body settles back over the chassis, and then you apply the brakes to come to a complete stop. And that way you get a nice smooth stop. If you hold the brake completely until the vehicle comes to a stop, what will happen is the body will move forward of the chassis, and then it'll snap back and you'll get a really rough stop. And this is something that we need to teach to new students who are learning how to drive. But veteran drivers will do this automatically. And again, what happens is you come up, you release the brakes, the body settles back over. But if you take your foot completely off the brakes, again, a second time, the brake lights on the rear of the vehicle will go off and go back on. And again, people behind you, drivers behind you are, wait a minute, the lights just flashed again. What's going on here? So they're paying attention and looking after their own stopping, and it is putting in place communication that you are coming to a stop and people behind you are less likely to rear end you. Sharma, downhill parking, do vehicles need to hit the curb or just too close to the curb during driving tests? Thanks in advance. Sharma, no, you got to get downhill. You need to get the front tire into the curb so that it rests on the curb, because that's your backup if the emergency brake lets go. And the other piece about that, Sharma, is when you're parking for the purposes of a driver's test, you must apply the parking brake every time you park the vehicle for a driver's test. And I also advocate getting in the habit of applying the parking brake every time you park the vehicle after you get your driver's license. That way, the vehicle is going to get there is going to still be in the same place when you come back. And many people come back to me and say, oh, you don't have to do that. You only have to park on a hill. Why do we need to make it complicated? It's not complicated. Just create the driving habit of every time you park the vehicle, apply the parking brake. Just create the habit, and then it is not something that you have to think about. It's the same thing with shoulder checking. Every time you change directions of the vehicle, shoulder check. Create the habit of shoulder checking, shoulder checking, shoulder checking. ABS. Always be scanning. Therefore, if you're shoulder checking, you're always scanning, you're always gathering information, and you are an active participant in your driving. And then that way, if you make a mistake, the habits will kick in and keep you safe when you get tired, when you get distracted, or you make a mistake, because we make mistakes. Same thing with signaling. If you signal every time you change directions of the vehicle, regardless of whether there are other people around or not, other people will help you out, because driving is a social activity. Know that, to keep yourself safe. It is about driving habits, and these driving habits form the basis of the smarter defensive driving model, which will keep you safe. All right? Know that. Okay, so Marion, cause if I release the brakes, the car moves forwards. Thanks for that. Yes, and that's why you have that space. And Marion says she applies the parking brake in an automatic. It doesn't matter whether it's an automatic or not. And this is one of the automotive engineering mistakes that engineers made, was they labeled the stop gear in the automatic transmission park, and people think that when they put it in park, it's parked. However, they have made up for that with advances in technology, and most newer vehicles now have electric parking brakes on them. So when the vehicle stops, most new vehicles will automatically apply the parking brake, because you want the vehicle held in position when it's parked by the brakes, not by the transmission. It's hard on the transmission, and you can see people when they park and they put it into park and they let their foot off the brake and the vehicle lurches forward if it's on a hill. And again, other people, and I'm having a go at my friend Sam here because he does the same thing. Oh, I only apply the parking brake when I'm on a hill. You don't know when you're on a hill. I will tell you that point blank, that you do not know when you're on a hill. When I taught truck driving, uphill, downhill affected shifting in a big truck in a manual transmission. It affected shifting. So the students had to know whether they were driving uphill or whether they were driving downhill in order to learn smooth shifting. Most of them could not tell me whether they were on an uphill or whether they are on a downhill. And it's the same thing with the parking brake. You don't know if you are on a hill. So just create the habit of applying the parking brake every time you park the vehicle. And I know for most people this is just falling on deaf ears, but I'm going to repeat it again and again and again, because if we get more people applying the parking brake, it's going to prolong the life of your transmission. It's just easier on your transmission. All right. So we're talking about traffic signs. We're talking about keeping yourself safe when you're driving because critical information is given to you via traffic signs. However, again, coming back from my experience of teaching truck driving and taking drivers who are licensed and upgrading them to a higher class license where traffic signs become critical as part of driving big trucks because you have to know what downhill grade signs are. You have to know curve signs, left and right, intersection signs, names of roads, and those types of things. Many signs become absolutely critical in driving a big truck. Height signs, for example, that car drivers probably never pay attention to. These become critical in keeping yourself safe when you're driving a big truck. When I teach new drivers how to drive a big truck, they are not paying attention to signs at all because they don't. They simply follow other traffic around and they do what other traffic is doing. They are not reading and gleaning the information from traffic signs. So if you want to be smarter than the average driver on our roadways, the average driver, glean information from traffic signs and keep yourself safe on the roadways. Arch, my friend, I get crazy looks from students when I spend 10 minutes explaining the parking brake. Not many people do that here. I'm sure you do, Arch. And the other piece about that, Arch, is parking brake, emergency brake, or hand brake. You know, what is it and what is its purpose? Because most people will not know what the parking brake is about or why they should use it because, and you know, Arch, you're fighting an uphill battle with the parking brake because their parents, their friends, their family members will all say, oh, you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. And, you know, unfortunately, Arch, you and I both know as driving instructors, we're kind of like used car salespeople, right? They only need us for a certain amount of time and they get their driver's license and then they know it all. They don't need that information from us anymore. Maybe not 10 minutes. Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. Elevator fan, if there is no curb when parking on a hill, point your front wheels away from the center of the road. Yes, towards the shoulder for sure. Arch, nobody uses it. No, you're absolutely right, Arch. Nobody uses the parking brake. Automotive engineers have now put the parking brake on automatically when you park a newer vehicle because they have electric brakes and they can program them to do that with the computer. So if automotive engineers, the really smart people who design cars, are automatically putting on the parking brake, then the rest of us should create the habit of putting on the parking brake in a vehicle, regardless of whether it's an automatic transmission or whether it is a manual transmission. That's what we need to do. Arch, yes, Arch, it is definitely an uphill battle in terms of the information of getting other people to do certain things and create driving habits. It's the same thing with signaling, right? Getting people to signal every time they change directions of the vehicle, and you know, get these people come back and they're like, you don't have to do that, you don't have to signal, you don't have to do that, right? It's exhausting. It's exhausting, but you know, we're spreading the message. We're trying to keep people safe and reduce traffic crashes on our roadway. Elevator fan, if the driving examiner has to intervene or tell you what to do in a traffic situation, that is an automatic fail on a driver's test. You are absolutely correct, my friend. If they tell you what to do, maybe not so much. Maybe they're just kind of hinting at it. But again, this is the other piece of the driving test, you know, not just reading traffic signs and gleaning the information and no actions contrary to a traffic sign, a legal traffic sign, for example, speeding or making a left turn where your left-hand turns are prohibited. That's an automatic fail on a driver's test for sure. Driving examiners have discretion in their marking of the test. So if you did everything stellar and you signaled when you backed up during your three-point turn and they're like, oh, wait, this person knows how to drive, but you had one stop sign on your driver's test that you didn't quite come to a complete stop, you kind of got the vehicle stopped, but you know, it didn't come to a stop and you rolled through, then they might say, oh, you know, they did everything else well on the test and they can obviously drive, they're competent, they're safe on the roadways, they adapted to changing traffic conditions, then we're gonna let this person pass. That's what's gonna happen. So know that and do as much as you can right for the purposes of your driver's test. And the other tip that I have for driving tests, keep going until the examiner tells you to stop. If you think you made a mistake, don't get all flustered by it. And, oh my God, I made a mistake. I didn't see that last sign there. I didn't know what it said, and it was probably a speeding sign. Oh my God, don't do that. Don't go down that rabbit hole. Just take a breath, because the driving examiner may not even have seen the mistake that you think you made. So keep going until the examiner tells you to stop. Sharma, please, any important instructions? I have planned to take the test in the next week. Still struggling with parallel parking judgments with curbs. Parallel parking, Sharma, just work on your parallel parking, driving around. Revisit your slow speed maneuvers. Sharma, where are you taking your driver's test? Whereabouts in the States or here in Canada in one of the provinces here? And I'll give you some tips on what to do for the purposes of that. And what we'll do, Sharma, you tell me where you are and we'll get through the presentation here. We'll get through that, and then we'll come back and we'll spend the remainder of the hour answering your questions about traffic signs, defensive driving, and passing your driver's test first time so that you're going to be safe here. So we're going to get over to traffic signs, the presentation here, and we're talking about reading road signs, and I was talking about how important it was driving through British Columbia here, and I'll talk more about that, and driving on highways and keeping yourself safe, and especially with fall coming, shorter days, longer nights, driving at nighttime, locating road signs, and using those as landmarks to figure out where the roadway is going and in which direction you're going to be pointing your vehicle. For those of you new to Smart Drive Test, my name is Rick August. I was a truck driver in the 1990s. I hauled freight between Ontario, Canada, and the United States. I became a licensed commercial driving instructor in 1997. So I've been doing this for a very long time, and I need to get off my butt. I need to start getting myself out of bed early in the morning and finish my book on the psychology of driving, because I'm just like fascinated by it. And the last piece a couple of weeks ago, cognitive dissonance, was kind of the last piece, and there's an academic in Indiana down in Elevator Fans neck of the woods there that I need to get in touch with, who was talking about cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance is when you have two opposing ideas and how you rationalize one piece of information so that it aligns with your opinions about the world. And driving is all about that in terms of how people drive and their actions when they're behind the wheel of a vehicle. So I need to get going on the psychology of driving and getting that going. I need a book agent is what I need. I need somebody to help me get this published, because I want this book to be published, because I just think that it will be so valuable in terms of academia and traffic safety and road safety internationally. So that's what we're working on. Commercial driving instructor in 1997. 2006, I graduated from the University of Melbourne with my doctorate in legal history. Legal history is the study of policing, courts, and prisons. My expertise, oddly enough, is policing as it relates to traffic. So kind of the turn of the 20th century, from horse-drawn traffic to motorized traffic, and how policing and law changed to increase road safety in the face of enormous increases in traffic speeds. Traffic speeds went from 6 miles an hour to 30 miles an hour in a matter of 25, 30 years. Now, you may not think that's very much, 6 miles an hour to 30 miles an hour, but that's kind of like saying in the next 40 years, by 2065, we'll be driving around cities at 250 kilometers an hour. We'll be driving around cities at 180 miles an hour. Now, just try and wrap your head around it. That's basically what happened at the beginning of the 20th century with motorized traffic. All right, while I was going to university in Australia, I drove buses for Greyhound and one of the regional bus lines there as well, so I have bus experience. Most of my driving instruction was with big trucks, logbooks, air brakes, commercial vehicles. I have done some driver rehabilitation training, teaching people how to drive with hand controls who had debilitating injuries, lost a limb, sustained a brain injury, and were returning to driving after a couple of years, because if you know anybody who has experienced a brain injury, that you know that after 2 years, that's as much cognitive and physical ability that they're going to regain in their lifetime. And some of the brain injury people that I worked with would be really great for a couple of days, and then the next day they would come in and we would be driving towards a traffic island and a utility pole, and I'd say, hey Jake, what's going on today? And they're like, oh, I'm just having an off day. And I'm like, okay, let's just postpone today, we'll reschedule, and you can come back on another day that you're having a better day. So this is some of the people who are dealing, recovering from brain injuries and returning to active lives. You want to know more about me, know more about what's going on with the Smart Drive Test YouTube channel, check out the autobiography over at the Smart Drive Test website, and all kinds of great information over there. All right, good things to have a look at. Why do I get a dash cam? These references are down in the description there. Why should I get a dash cam? All kinds of reasons to get a dash cam. Protection against liability if you are involved in a traffic crash. If you are learning how to drive, you can come back and look at a situation on the video, and you can revisit it, go through it, and say, make some really good decisions. You and an instructor or somebody who's a mentor helping you out to learn how to drive, they can go over the video footage and say, hey, you should have done this, or stopped here, or signaled here, done these kinds of things. So dash cams are inexpensive. You can pick some of them up now for about $65. And I'm going to be doing some reviews on dash cams as well. So good record of what's going on in the vehicle. Do know that dash cams are not just watching what other people are doing as well. They're also watching and monitoring you as well. But good reasons to get a dash cam. Shoulder checking, shoulder checking, shoulder checking. Master shoulder checking. This is the top reason, probably the top reason why most students fail a driver's test. And I have had many, many, many smart drivers come back to me over the years and say, I didn't pass my driver's test because they didn't shoulder check. They needed to learn how to shoulder check. Unfortunately, somebody did not teach them. I'm sure that they were misinformed about what was going on and that they needed to shoulder check. But have a look at that video down in the description there. Shape of the sign, the colors, and the words or symbols thereon are how traffic signs communicate information to road users and allow them to glean information quickly. These signs, for example, are construction signs because they're orange in color with black symbols and lettering thereon, and they're diamond in shape for the most part when they are construction signs. But construction signs are orange background with black lettering and symbols thereon. The one on the top says that the lane on the right ends, and the one on the bottom says that the lane on the left ends. So know that when you're reading traffic signs. The shape, the words and symbols thereon, and the colors, and they are classified into groups. Some are more standardized than others, but for the most part, traffic signs are in classifications which will allow you to identify them quickly. Okay, road sign classifications, regulatory signs. In the States, railway crossing signs are part of the regulatory classification, but here in Canada, they are not. School signs. School signs are probably the least standardized of all the traffic signs. I've seen every different kind of school sign, diamond shapes, pentagon for the most part. One thing that is consistent about school signs is that there are two people on them as opposed to one. One person on a traffic sign is playground and other recreational areas. Cautionary signs tend to be diamond in shape, yellow background with black lettering and symbols thereon. And these were incredibly important when I was driving across the country 2-lane mountain roads with all kinds of curves. At one point, my daughter said to me, she was sitting in the back seat, she's like, it feels like we're on a roller coaster here, because it was just like 1, 2, and up and down and around the corner. All right. Lane control signs tend to be above the lane and will tell you what you can do in that lane, whether you can proceed straight through the intersection, or you can turn left, or you can turn right. And then object marker signs. Object marker signs fall under the cautionary signs. They can also be called hazard obstruction signs, which simply means that they mark fixed objects on the roadway. So traffic islands, trees, bridge abutments, anything that is something that you could potentially strike on the roadways. And these were particularly important when I was driving on the highway, the mountain road, left and right, because many of the times when you come into a left-hand curve, there would be a cautionary sign that would say curve to the left. It would have a cautionary speed of 60 kilometers an hour, and then right where the sign was, to prevent people from hitting it, because as you go around a left-hand curve, your car wants to go to the right, and there would be concrete barrier there to protect the sign so it didn't get knocked down. And there's hazard obstruction signs there that would indicate that there was a concrete barrier there and you needed to stay left of the concrete barrier when you were driving around the curve. Object marker signs, as I just said, these are probably the most prolific signs on our highways, and they have hash marks on them. They're rectangular. They're probably 24, 30 inches high, and they have hash marks. And think of it like a kettle of water pouring onto the hash marks. The side that the water pours off is the side that you want to pass. So pass left, pass right, or they are chevrons, which is a triangle, half a triangle, two parts of a triangle, and you can either pass left or right. So for example, if there's a traffic line with a right turning lane, a slip lane, and there will be a hazard obstruction sign there with the chevrons on it, and you can pass either left or you can pass right by taking the slip lane, the right turning lane there at the traffic island. Regulatory signs, stop signs, speed signs, as I said, railway crossing signs. Tim corrected me on this, and I thank him for that. That railway crossing signs in the US are regulatory signs, but here in Canada, they are not regulatory signs. Okay, stop signs, speed signs, brake check signs for commercial vehicles, large commercial vehicles, are all regulatory signs. The root word of regulatory is regulation, and therefore it must be obeyed. It is the law. And if you have an action contrary to a regulatory sign on a driver's test, you are not going to pass. You are not going to be successful on your driver's test. This is why rolling through a stop sign is usually an automatic fail on a driver's test, okay? And the other bit that was a little bit disturbing on the drive back across from Nelson back to Vernon here was the number of camper trailers that I saw on pickup trucks, and even the 3/4 ton pickup trucks. Most of these trailers and trucks were overloaded, because when the truck and trailer, it should be sitting level on the back end where the trailer connects to the truck. When it's sitting like this, when it makes a V, the trailer is overloaded. The trailer is overloaded. Cautionary signs, as I said, these are diamond in shape. They have yellow backgrounds and they have black letterings or symbols thereon. These are warning signs. Some of them are relevant and some of them are just a cautionary sign that are there to give you some information. Some of them will save your life, some of them not so much. If you're driving larger vehicles like camper vans and you move up to driving a bus or you start driving semi-trucks, you need to pay attention to height signs. And this becomes incredibly important for semi-truck drivers, low overpasses, bridges, those types of things. And I was talking about this on Twitter. There was another driver in a semi-truck doing a U-turn, and somebody had posted it, and I left the comment that, when did U-turns in a semi-truck become a thing? I'm not even comfortable doing a U-turn in a car, let alone in a 75-foot vehicle. You need at least 4 lanes of traffic to safely make a U-turn in a big truck. Not that I would ever advocate it. And not to mention the damage that you're doing to that unit with the axles and chassis and those types of things, because these things are not designed to do that. So I digress, but height signs become important when you're driving buses, you're driving trucks, you're driving camper vans, anything that is deemed a commercial vehicle. So take cautionary notes. Now, I will say this about the curve signs, the cautionary speeds. If the cautionary speed was 50 kilometers an hour, I knew that I could take it at probably 70, 80 kilometers an hour. If the speed sign had a cautionary sign stating that the speed limit was 60 kilometers an hour for the curve, which is 40 miles an hour, then I knew that I could take it at probably 90 kilometers an hour, 100 kilometers an hour, which is 55, 60 miles an hour. So the cautionary sign is for larger vehicles. In your own vehicle, you're going to kind of figure this out as you get more and more experience, but in the beginning, stay closer to that suggested speed for the curve. It's the one at the bottom here. You can see it says 45 miles an hour. Do it at 45 miles an hour, but as you gain more experience, then you know you can go a little bit faster and still stay safe. And it's going to be under ideal conditions. If there's the road is wet or there's a bit of ice or snow or those types of things, you are definitely going to have to be near that cautionary speed to keep yourself safe on the roadways. Signs that become important for larger vehicles: if you're pulling a horse trailer, you're pulling a boat, any type of trailer, destination signs, overhead signs, construction signs, and match the speed of the flow of traffic. I do recommend this in terms of defensive driving after you get your license, but for the purposes of doing your driver's test, you must do the posted speed limit or the flow of traffic, whichever is less. If you speed for an extended period of time on your driver's test, you will not be successful. And I have talked about this previously, that your speed control is tied into your forward scanning pattern. So you are looking far down the road, check your centimeter, far down the road, instrument panel, far down the road, side mirror, far down the road, other side mirror, and you need to be repeating this every 15 to 20 seconds. So if your speed goes above the posted speed limit for more than 5 or 10 seconds, it tells the driving examiner that you are not paying attention to what's going on and your scanning pattern is not effective to keep control of the vehicle in changing traffic conditions. Okay, lane usage signs. As I said, lane usage signs work in concert with the road markings, so pay attention to the road markings as well. And they are overhead of the lane. You will find these on freeways and multi-lane roadways and the lane that you are in. So for the top sign, for example, you can only turn left, and in the right lane, you can turn left or proceed straight through. The one on the bottom, if you are in this lane and this sign is overhead, you can only turn left. So pay attention to the lane usage signs. These are probably well ignored. And if you were driving a truck and trailer or a larger vehicle and there are 2 lanes turning left, you always want to be in the outside lane, which means you want to be in the right lane, because you're going to get around the corner and off tracking is going to catch you and you're going to end up jammed up against a fixed object like utility pole or whatnot. Mile marker signs. People do not pay attention to mile marker signs, but these are incredibly important in terms of defensive driving. The only state that I am aware of is New York State. They like to be different in many things in terms of traffic regulations and signs and whatnot. Most of the time, the exit number and the mile marker number are one and the same, and these are good defensive driving strategies. It's the same thing as using your GPS. Your GPS will say stay straight on this road for 110 miles, right? So 110 miles, and then something's going to change, or you're going to have to turn or whatnot. So when I hear 110 miles, I take that number in my head, I look at my odometer and I add it to my odometer, and then I pay attention to my odometer. So for example, if my odometer is at 700, I know that when I get to 810 miles, that something's going to change. I'm going to have to turn, or I'm going to be at the ferry, or I'm going to be into a town, or I'm going to have to get onto a different highway, or those types of things. So now when I get to 810 on the speedometer, or on the odometer rather, I am paying attention to what's going on, because something in my driving environment is going to change. All right, mile markers will keep you safe, and exit numbers and mile markers are one and the same. And I've told the story before of the truck driver that I was working with. We were in Kamloops. He was going up the hill. Kamloops is a big hill again, like Nelson. It's a city built on a hill. And there was a big truck in front. He wanted to know if he could pass because his exit was coming up. And we were at exit 370, and his exit was at exit 375. And I said, well, your exit's at 375. How far up the road are you going to go? And he said, oh, I don't know. And I said, well, what's 75 minus 70? He said, 5. I said, well, you got 5 miles up the road. Can you pass the truck in 5 miles and then get back over to your exit? By taking note of what the exit number is, if it's at 370 and you're at 375, you know that you got 5 miles up the road. Now you're going to start paying attention to the exit numbers and going, okay, I got 2 more miles, 3 more miles, I got another mile up the road, half a mile, and then I'm going to get off the roadway. So it'll help you and keep you safe on freeways, interstates, and state roads in the U.S. With exit numbers. Good luck on your driver's test, and remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Paul, my friend, how are you? Looking forward to this Saturday for driving from Mississauga to Orangeville for family Thanksgiving. Awesome, awesome. Is it Thanksgiving next weekend already here in Canada? That is crazy. Because we just had a long weekend here, and now there's another long weekend coming up next weekend. Oh, crazy. Sharma, during parallel parking while reverse parking, what we need to first rotate with steering, or first we put reverse gear and then start rotate steering tires. What is the right process considered during the exam? Okay, so Sharma, the first thing that you need to do when you're parallel parking is when you come up and stop, put the transmission into reverse. That's the first thing that you do. Don't work the steering wheel yet. The reason that you put the transmission into reverse is because the reverse lights, the white lights on the back of your car, activate. They come on and they tell traffic behind you that you are going to parallel park into the space in which you're going to move the vehicle. So you need to put the transmission into reverse. So as you're driving up approximately half a block from where you're going to park, mirror signal shoulder check, you're going to signal, and then when you come to a stop beside the vehicle in the right place, you're going to put the transmission into reverse to activate the reverse lights. You do that before you start manipulating the steering wheel and start backing up. Elevator fan, mile markers also important for purposes of driver's test if the examiner takes you on the highway. Yes, it can be. Not so much on a driver's test. Elevator fan, mile markers, not really going to be paying attention to them. They're more of a defensive driving tool after you get your driver's license. For a driver's test, there's just too much going on. It's the same thing when I talk about cruise control and using cruise control. Don't use cruise control on a driver's test, okay? Just work the throttle, all right? Maintain your 3 to 4 second following distance from traffic in front of you. Stop one vehicle length back from the car in front of you, and everything else will just fall into place for the purposes of your driver's test. But don't pay too much attention to mile marker signs for the purpose of your driver's test. Epic in the Toronto area, particularly the 407 and the 401 where it's express local lane, you will see the EU style white on blue background exit signs, very different from US Canadian parts of UU, white on green. Yes, there's different standardization of the traffic signs in Europe and other places in the world as opposed to here in Canada. Interestingly enough, though, traffic signs are easy to glean the information off. I don't think I've seen too many traffic signs, even in Europe, that I could not assess pretty quickly without looking at a textbook or looking it up on Google what the traffic sign meant. So yes, they're pretty easy to figure out. Once you have a bit of driving experience, you're able to figure out what the traffic signs mean and how to glean information from them. The other piece about traffic signs is that they are reflective. So at night, the light from your headlights will reflect off the traffic signs, making them appear brighter at night. And again, you can use them as landmarks to figure out which way the road is going at night, and you can determine, where you're going to direct your vehicle to stay on the roadway. Most important, follow other traffic at night for night driving skills, and probably this is what I'll talk about next week, is defensive driving skills for driving at night and keeping yourself on the roadway. Arch, I love my dash cam. I use it every day. I have the Rove R2 4K Dual. Excellent. And Arch, the Rove R2 4K Dual, how do you find the quality of the video with that? Is it actually 4K video? Because I've been looking for a 4K video camera, and I have been somewhat disappointed with the quality of what is claimed is 4K. Maybe it's come a ways now. It's been a couple of years since I've looked for one, but my Garmin is getting pretty old, and what was I going to say? It's 1080p. It's pretty decent quality. It's not great, but it's, and I've looked at some 4K cameras over the years. They're definitely not 4K. So if that's a good camera, then I would definitely really be interested in having a look at it for sure for my videos and whatnot. Excellent. Marion, when I did my test, I made a small mistake. I acknowledged my mistake and apologized, and he just said it's okay. Excellent. Yes, of course you would tell the examiner that you made a mistake, Marion. Don't tell the examiner that you made a mistake. Just take a breath, carry on, keep going. Think. Love this guy. Thank you, my friend, for your kind words. Always awesome. Paul says that next weekend is, in fact, Thanksgiving here in Canada. It's a punch bowl invitation. Okay, and the reason I'm surprised, Paul, is because we just, here where we live, the kids just had 4 days off school. So now you're telling me next weekend's another day off school. And of course, maybe, I don't know what's going on. It's all weird. Arch, it's pretty good. There are a lot of vids on it. I would recommend it. Okay, awesome. Maybe, Arch, if you don't mind, Rick at smartdrivetest.com, just send me that the description of it, what brand and model it is, and I'll have a look at it. And I would be definitely interested in doing a check on that, because like I said, I'm looking for a 4K camera to improve the quality of my video here on the YouTube channel for sure. Marion, I love that. I can just imagine you saying that. I can just imagine you. Excellent. Okay, so we're talking about traffic signs. As I said, they were very important coming across east to west. Arch, Rick, R-I-C-K, at smartdrivetest.com. Rick at smartdrivetest.com. They were critically important coming across east to west from Nelson across to Vernon, British Columbia. I don't know how many people have been on that road, but it is the quintessential mountain road. It's 2 lanes, no shoulder, up and down and around, and it's like being on a roller coaster. It's left and then it's right and then it's left and it's right. And just to throw in some interesting things, there's a few switchbacks. I don't know if you're familiar with what switchbacks are, but basically the mountain is too steep to go up, so you crisscross across the mountain as you're going up. And switchbacks, you have to slow right down because you're making basically a hairpin turn. You're going up and then you're switching back and coming back up the mountain. And there's some of those, and bridges, single lane bridges on this road, and logging trucks and other vehicles on the roadway, and you're trying to get out and get around them. And of course, in conjunction with traffic signs are road markings, and you need to pay attention to the road markings when it is safe to pass, because there are so many places that it is just not safe to pass. And you'll get sections of roadway where they're going through the mountains, and it's just this windy, twisty section, and it's recommended 50 kilometers an hour through this windy, twisty section. And for 10 miles, it'll be double solid yellow lines dividing the 2 lanes of traffic, and it is completely unsafe to pass. And I can see why it's unsafe to pass. And then, of course, you know, the buggy, my 1998 Honda CR-V, is 125 horsepower naturally aspirated, trying to get that going. And, you know, I mean, fortunately, it's got a 5-speed manual transmission. If I really need to get it going, I just dump it down into 3rd gear and just walk on it, right? So this is what we need to do. Paul, why drivers never pay attention to signs of bus platforms and still park on those curbs? Yeah, all kinds of places where drivers park. Now, in defense of those drivers, Paul, I will say that one of the most... I have a ray of sunshine coming in somewhere here. Just, I'll close the curtain. Bear with me. The sun is changing, everything is changing, and I forgot to close the curtain. Sorry about that. So we were talking about parking signs. Parking signs are the most difficult to interpret. It's like cities put them in and purposely make them difficult to interpret so that they can give you a parking ticket. I was in Montreal last summer, and no, 2 summers ago I was in Montreal parking around my friend's place, and every day you had to go out and move the vehicle because they were cleaning the streets with street sweepers, so you could only park on one street on certain days, and then the next day you had to move it, or it was winter time, or, you know, it was just crazy. And then, of course, the signs are in French too, right? And, you know, but you could still figure them out. But I managed to get 2 parking tickets in less than 4 days. Just drove me crazy. And as Marion says, don't worry, the rain will be coming soon there in Vancouver, and the snow and whatnot. Yes, absolutely. An S when you do a switchback. Okay, epic. New York State, particularly on the tolled section of Interstate 90, 95, and 87, the New York Thruway system. They are not the typical North America white on green backgrounds, but blue on white. Okay, so they're different there as well. Ashley, what to do when you suddenly freeze up or blip during a road test? Any tips? Ashley, take a breath. Okay, if you blip on the driver's test and say, for example, the examiner asked you a question, you just blip. Okay, just say, listen, I don't know the answer right now. Can I just have a minute and I'll come back to it? Okay, or just take the points, okay? Because as we've talked about on a driver's test, there's two ways that you could potentially fail the driver's test. Too many demerits or automatic fails. Very few people automatically fail on a driver's test. I would say the number of people that fail a driver's test outright are about 5% of the people that take a test. Most of the people who do not pass a driver's test get too many demerits, okay? So if you're going to blip on a driver's test, just take the demerits, okay? For example, if you back into the parking space and you hit the curb and the driving examiner says, okay, and then write something on their clipboard or something on their tablet, most of them I suspect have tablets now, it's probably 10 points. Just take the 10 points, okay? Do as much as you can do right and just keep going until the examiner tells you to stop, okay? If you freeze up, you need to take a breath, you need to get yourself out of that, and you just need to keep going, okay? The other piece about this is luck favors the prepared. So get as much practice as you can with different people in the vehicle. And in the days and weeks leading up to your driver's test, put other people that you haven't normally driven with in the vehicle and ask them to give feedback on your driving, especially if they're licensed drivers and whatnot, right? Even people that aren't licensed driver, ask them to give you feedback on what you're doing when you're driving. The more people that you can drive the vehicle with, obviously you're a learner, so what I just said is not relevant. You need to have people that are licensed in the vehicle that can drive around with you, because you're on a learner's, obviously, and you have to have licensed people in your vehicle. So therefore, you just want to get feedback from different people to try and reduce your nerves and your anxiety when test day actually comes, right? Because it's going to happen. You're going to be nervous. You're going to be anxious. You're going to make mistakes, right? And, you know, driving examiners, most of them, 97% of them are good. They're doing a good job. They know that you're nervous. They know that you're anxious. They know that you do not have a high skill level. So they're going to take it easy on you. They're not going to try and trick you for the most part. I know that people come back and they like to blame the driving examiner for all kinds of things that happen and this and that and those types of things. 9 times out of 10, what the driving examiner says is correct. You weren't ready. You made a mistake. You were too nervous and you messed it up. Okay? But if you fail, don't let it define you. Okay? Things in life that happen to us that are bad do one of three things to us. They destroy us, they define us, or they make us stronger. Okay? Don't let it destroy you. Don't let it define you that, oh my God, all driving examiners are evil and have horns coming out of their head and they have wings and their name is Lucifer and I'm never going to pass and it's just a money grab. Okay? Don't let it do that. Just say to yourself, okay, I'm going to go, as soon as you get out of the car, that the driving examiner has told you failed, walk back into the DMV, walk back into the test center, rebook your driver's test and say, when can I get the next driver's test? If you can't get a driver's test for 3 or 4 months, get on the waiting list. Book your driver's test as soon as possible. Most places in the states, the DOTs and those types of things, you can book it within another test within a couple of days. Just take another test, okay? Do not let somebody's opinion of you become your reality. Take the feedback from the driving examiner that you got. Listen, you had a couple of stop signs you didn't come to a complete stop at and you hit the curb when you parallel park. Then practice those things for the next time and then go in and do it again as soon as possible. And you're going to pass. I guarantee that you will be successful in passing your driver's test. But if you freeze up or you blip, you don't know what's going on. If you blip, just say, listen, can I have a minute? I'll get the answer to you. And if you freeze up, take a breath, get yourself going again, okay? Move your fingers, move your toes, squeeze your butt. And and talk to yourself and say, with that little negative niggly voice in your head, say, shut up, not out loud, but in your head, tell it to shut up and I'm going to do this, right? The 4 most powerful words in the English language. I can do this. I can do this. You're going to get your driver's license. You're going to pass. All right. You froze on a green light. Okay, Ashley. You did it. Did you book another driver's test? If you haven't booked another driver's test, Ashley, book another driver's test. Go and get your driver's license, okay? It's yours. Take it, all right? Take it. Go and pass the test. Jump through the hoop. Get your driver's license, okay? Don't let it define you. Don't let it haunt you. Just, I made a mistake. Let's move on with life. Let's go get my driver's license because that's mine. That over there, that is mine. What do I need to get that? Okay? How much do I owe you? What do I need to do? Okay? You can do it. You can do it. Okay? You're going to do it. Paul, my work friend Jason failed his G2, and I believe he was told that he has to wait for a month to retake the test. I don't know how that is. Yeah, they have some weird requirements here in Canada that there is a wait time. I know here in British Columbia they have implemented a wait time with the learner's permit. And yes, it's a month. But again, Paul, tell your friend, tell him to rebook it. If it's a month, then rebook it, okay? And go and practice the feedback that he got from the examiners. Don't wait, okay? Get your license as soon as possible, ASAP. Rebook it. If you're in one of these states where you have a couple of days that you can book another test, go in and book another test within a couple of days, okay? Get her done. Get your driver's license. That's mine, okay? What do I need to get it? Do what you need to do. Jump through the hoops, because as we know, a lot of things in life are jumping through hoops. We have to meet the requirements of what other people say to us. It's the same thing. I'm renewing my passport right now. I got to go get a passport picture. I got to find a guarantor. I got to get them to sign on the back of the passport photo, right? I got to go in. I got to bring identification with me. I got to pay them $160. There are hoops to jump through for me to get my passport. It's the same thing with getting a driver's license. There are hoops that you have to jump through. You have to do the learner's test. You have to wait a certain amount of time. You have to book an on-road driver's test. You have to meet certain requirements. You have to demonstrate to the driving examiner that you have due care and control of the vehicle in changing traffic conditions. Nothing more, nothing less. Take away the driving examiner's right to fail you. That's all you have to do. Nothing more, nothing less. All right, and you can do that, okay? If you don't do it the first time, do it the second time. Thank you, Marion, for that encouragement. So we're talking about traffic signs today, different classifications of different classifications of road signs, how they convey information to the driving public and road users, the shape of the sign, okay? A hexagon sign, 8-sided sign that is red with white lettering on it is a stop sign every day, all day, globally, everywhere in the world. A stop sign is a stop sign is a stop sign. A yield sign, and I love this one. A yield sign is an inverted triangle. And people will come back and say, it's not an inverted triangle. You're so stupid. How can you say it's an inverted triangle? There's no such thing. I don't see too many triangles that sit on their point. So for me, it's an inverted triangle. Maybe not for you, but for me, it's an inverted triangle. But anyway, I know that people just get grumbly because they didn't get the answer right, because they didn't read all the options on the multiple choice question before picking their answer. So a yield sign is a yield sign is a yield sign. It's an inverted triangle, white background with a red border around it. Oftentimes it will have yield on the inside or give way. Same kind of sign. All right. Cautionary signs. I have yellow background, black lettering, symbols thereon, usually diamond in shape. What else? Regulatory signs in the States. It's railway crossing signs. Here in Canada, speed signs. What other ones are regulatory signs? Left turn, right turn prohibited. Stop signs, yield signs. These are all regulatory signs. All right. Different kinds of signs. Lane usage signs. Hazard obstruction signs, marking fixed objects along the roadway. These are the most prolific on our roadways. They're the ones you will see them everywhere. Once you start taking note of these, you will see them absolutely everywhere. Marion, did I get your email the other day? Just send me a reminder, Marion, because I get so many emails and it probably got lost in the avalanche of emails that I get every day. So just send it to me again and I will definitely get back to you, okay? Paul, my work friend, passed her road test in Guelph 2 weeks ago. That is awesome. Congratulations. Convey my congratulations to her on passing her driver's test there. That is brilliant, my friend. So traffic signs, these will make you a safer, smarter driver. They will help you to pass your driver's test and they will keep you safe on the roadways. As I was saying, how critical these were on the 4.5-hour drive east to west from Nelson to Vernon. The curve signs, 2-lane skinny, as we call them in the truck driving industry. It's a 2-lane opposing road with, left, right, up, down, left, right, up, down, curving road through the mountains and, switchbacks. And you need to read the road signs. And most of the road signs are protected by concrete abutments. There are hazard obstruction signs on the concrete abutments to tell you that you need to keep over, cautionary signs on how fast you can go around the curves and those types of things. So start paying attention to road signs as well. They will allow you to be proactive and predictable on the roadways, because you'll look down the road, you'll see a merge sign. Oh, my lane is coming to an end. I'm going to get over early into the other road, and I'm not going to get jammed up at the choke point down there, because the zipper merge is not something that works, and it will never work, and is poor defensive posturing. Don't do it. Don't wait until the choke point. Get over early, maintain your space around your vehicle, have your minimum safe distance. Keep yourself safe when you're driving. Read road signs, glean the information, and incorporate that information into your smarter defensive driving. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. Have a great day. All the best. Bye now.